This is a follow-up to Game Piracy Explained. If you haven't watched that video yet, you can do so later. For now, here's a quick summary. Pirate groups are classified on a spectrum of crack producers and distributors. Warez scene groups are exclusively producers, while repackers are exclusively distributors, though some would argue they do more than merely distribute cracks. Repackers compress cracked games down to smaller sizes and remove unnecessary content like credits and language packs to save on storage requirements. More austere repacks also encode cinematics and textures down to a lower quality to further reduce the install size. This practice has become somewhat superfluous in recent times as game developers now distribute higher resolution textures and cinematics separately. Peer-to-peer includes both distributors and independent crackers who don't adhere to scene rules. So what are the scene rules? This is a current list of standard ISO rules that scene groups have to abide by. Most of these are instructions on how releases should be labeled and packaged. For example, games sourced on Blu-ray discs have to be in ISO format and packed with WinRAR in 300 MB files. What is more interesting are their rules on updates and DLC. Updates are allowed if they're not freely available and do need modified content to work. Media cracked updates must have the cracked content included in a separate directory. This rule is seen in action in Conspiracy's crack for an Agents of Mayhem update, for which the NFO clearly states their previous release of the base game is required. Updates often go hand in hand with DLCs, for which the scene has another rule. DLC has to have some sort of installer and detailed instructions in the NFO on how to install it correctly. This rule is seen in action with Reloaded's release of Burial at Sea, wherein their NFO informs users that they will need Fairlight's release of Bioshock Infinite as a base to install the DLC on. Of course, there are a few DLCs and updates that are so substantial that the scene has special rules to accommodate. Enhanced digital download version after normal has to be released as DLC content, unless the additional content changes a game drastically. Drastic game changes are new levels and enhanced, improved graphics. Non-drastic game changes are new units, cars, objects, etc., sprite packs, new music, and content that does not change anything to the general gameplay. This rule can be seen in action in Conspiracy's cracks for the final edition of Batman Arkham Knight. The NFO breaks from convention with its title, Batman Arkham Knight, read NFO CPY. This is what Conspiracy said. Yes, we already released this game last year, but this is a really unique case where the game has been pulled off the shelves because it was in a shitty and unplayable state, and it was later re-released October 28th. An update version would have been majestically huge and a nonsense. This includes a whole bunch of new DLCs, new languages, and a finally worth-playing game. This is Conspiracy explaining to the scene that this release qualifies for the drastic game changer exception. The scene also allows for unlockers and cheats, with a deadline of 2 weeks after the game's release. Their deadline for trainers is longer though, set at 1 month since the game's release. However, we think these scene rules are incomplete, as scene groups often cite other hitherto unseen rules when they nuke each other's releases. Let's examine in more detail the example we used in the Game Piracy Explained video. This is what Conspiracy said when they nuked Steampunk's Ghost Recon Wildlands crack with a proper release of their own. First of all, congrats to our competition for their work. Nicely done. In this though, you made some poor choices. You didn't manage to crack EAC, and in result you have to load in memory your keygen every time, which we're pretty sure is forbidden by scene rules. While we know EAC stands for Easy Anti-Cheat, we have not found the rule that forbids loading keygen in memory. It is possible that the list of prohibited techniques is circulated internally within the scene and has not yet been leaked to the public. If you have more information on the subject, please share it in the comments section below. Similarly, we have not been able to find the rule Skid Row broke when they substituted Deus Ex Mankind Divided's de novo protected EXE with the unprotected EXE from Deus Ex Breach. It is ironic that this crack was nuked for not cracking the original EXE, as this method makes it the only release as of this video that removes de novo entirely, instead of merely bypassing it as other cracks do. We will examine whether this results in improved performance in our second run of de novo tests, so please like, subscribe and press the bell icon so you don't miss out. In our Game Piracy Explained video, we stated scene rules prohibit groups from cracking multiplayer. It appears we were mistaken as the ISO rules clearly state, Keygens, covers, guides, multiplayer hacks, language selectors, and any other PC game ISO relevant releases are of course allowed, as long as they consist of some value to expand the pleasure of the release they are meant for. If the rules don't forbid it, why do scene groups seldom crack multiplayer? Clues may be found in a comment under our game piracy video. Scene cracks and laws are the preferred choice to preserve games for years to come. The commenter goes on to speculate that this is why they have strict rules that prohibit techniques that are not well suited to preserve games. This theory is corroborated by the few scene releases that do have multiplayer functions. Most of these make use of the game's LAN feature in conjunction with LAN emulators like Hamachi. This cannot be considered a multiplayer crack as it preserves a feature from the actual game, one that the developers created for the legitimate buyers who paid for the game. LAN is not a bypass that the scene created to allow pirates to connect to each other. This is also the case for Steampunk's crack for Sniper Elite 4's dedicated server, though nobody has been able to make this work yet. Besides these exceptions, scene releases cannot be used to play multiplayer without some help from peer-to-peer groups. Groups like Revolt found a way to trick Steam into providing multiplayer connectivity for pirates. To find out how they did this, let's look into the role Steam plays in connecting players to each other using information from their own documentation. Steam provides many different features and APIs to improve the multiplayer experience for developers and customers alike. With these features, you can easily allow players to find and play with each other using the Steam matchmaking APIs, or use the Steam Game Servers API to provide persistent, dedicated servers that your players can create communities around. Steam offers two solutions depending on the type of title: dedicated servers for highly competitive games and matchmaking lobbies for everything else. Peer-to-peer groups have had considerable success cracking matchmaking, so let's take a look at how that works. Steam's peer-to-peer matchmaking is built around the concept of a lobby. A lobby is an entity that lives on the Steam backend servers that is a lot like a chat room. Users can create a new lobby, associate data with a lobby, search for lobbies based on that data, join lobbies, and share information with other users in the lobby. The usual model for getting groups together to play is as follows. User selects multiplayer in the game they want to play and what kind of multiplayer they want, rules, scenarios, etc. The game searches for lobbies that have a similar or same set of rules, using the Lobby Search API. If a lobby is found, then the game joins that lobby. If no lobby is found, then it creates a new lobby. Users stay in a lobby until there are enough players ready to launch the game. Once the game is ready to launch, the users all join the game server, or connect to the user nominated to host the game. In order to help developers understand the usage of the Steamworks API, Steam has included source code for a fully functional version of the classic Space War multiplayer shooter game. The APIs and Steamworks features demonstrated in the example code include matchmaking, both lobbies and server browser, multiplayer authentication, 4 players supported in-game, networking. It is this, Space War, that peer-to-peer groups use to enable multiplayer functionality in pirated games. They release modified files called Steamworks fixes that trick Steam into believing pirates are running Space War, searching for other users to play Space War with, and Steam lets them connect to each other as if they were playing Space War instead of whatever game they have cracked this way. It is important to note that the game in question has to first be cracked either by the scene or by peer-to-peer groups before a Steamworks fix can be made. That being said, Steamworks fixes have been used to crack the multiplayer of several titles including Dirt 4, Final Fantasy 15 and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. You can track the number of pirates using Steamworks fixes by looking at the concurrent player count of Space War, though a tiny minority of these may be developers using it for its intended purpose. Steam games that use the developer's dedicated servers are more resilient to this kind of piracy. Games like Rocket League require the user to acquire an authentication ticket from Steam, which is much harder to crack. Voxy temporarily accomplished this using his own server to issue tickets from Space War, but Valve fixed this exploit after a complaint from Hitman developer IO Interactive, rendering useless any cracks that depended on his server. Now, you might be curious who came up with the concept in the first place. More to the point, what was the first game to be cracked this way? The earliest example we found was a crack for Modern Warfare 2. In late 2009, a blogger named RZ King announced pirates could play Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer by using the free beta of Zero Gear. This technique involved activating a free beta key for Zero Gear on Steam, downloading the beta, disabling automatic updates for the beta, then replacing the files with a cracked installation of Modern Warfare 2. After this was done, when pirates launched Zero Gear from Steam, they would instead launch Modern Warfare 2. From there, they could queue for matchmaking or invite their friends into a lobby. It wasn't long before Valve patched this exploit, leaving a gap for a more robust solution. A self-proclaimed software developer by the name of NT Authority stepped in to fill the void and created an alternative network for Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer. Alter IW Net, as he named it, had a server browser that provided a better experience than the legitimate game buyers had paid money for. Of course, Activision did not tolerate this and killed Alter IW Net with a cease and desist on March 11, 2012. Though Alter IW Net was dead, NT Authority didn't give up and restarted the project under a new name, 4 Delta 1, though this didn't last long either and shut down due to legal pressure from Activision. However, the gap he left has since been filled by projects like IW4X that have taken inspiration from his work to keep the concept going. NT Authority, meanwhile, went on to create 5M, which was to GTA 5 what Alter IW Net was to Modern Warfare 2. As with Activision, Take-Two ordered NT Authority to shut his project down, though they were kind enough not to involve lawyers in 5M's case, instead preferring to send private investigators to his house. They did the same to the developers of GTA Multiplayer, forcing the shutdown of another multiplayer alternative. In an interview since its closure, GTAMP's developers speculated that shark cards were the main reason Take-Two shut their project down, saying it was probable Take-Two don't want people to play on another multiplayer because it means that less people will buy their stuff on GTA Online. 5M has since resurfaced, though it now requires proof of game ownership, likely to keep Take-Two at bay. Interestingly, GTA Multiplayer also appears to have imposed the same requirement, and that didn't spare them from Take-Two's wrath. We wonder why the developers of 5M think they'd fare any better for imposing such a requirement. It should also be noted that NT Authority doesn't appear to be involved in 5M's renewed development. That concludes our video on multiplayer piracy. If you like this video, please share it. If you haven't watched our earlier video that explains game piracy, you should do so now as it goes into more detail on repackers, peer-to-peer groups, and the scene. There is more content like this on the way, so please like, subscribe, and press the bell button to know when it's out. Do you play Rainbow Six Siege or Dota 2? Check out the other channel for analytical guides for both games. Link is in the description and on the screen. While you're here, feel free to watch our playlist on hardware analysis of CPUs and GPUs, our 4-part Denuvo analysis where we explore its history, its performance impact, and why developers stick with it even after it's cracked, and our 3-part analysis of the DRM Stronger than Denuvo, where we explore what it does and compare its success with Denuvo.